Okay, let's kick it off. Last week we did how to set up a lead generation system. This is connected, maybe not directly in some ways, but it falls under the same email marketing umbrella. So most of you would be doing email newsletters or have thought about it. So I thought, hey, why not? Why not do a session on email newsletter marketing? The operative word being marketing. So let's look at what we're going to cover. We'll look at why should we even bother sending email newsletters? That's probably the main question. We'll look at the components of email newsletters. You know, what should email newsletters have? And this is probably the big part, right? The marketing part. How do we connect email newsletters to revenue? Okay. That's the after the newsletter. What happens after the newsletter is sent off? And then we'll just do a conclusion and a Q&A. So I'm happy to take some questions at that time. A little bit about me. Look, I know those who have been to some of my presentations would have seen this. I think if I do this for a couple of more sessions, I think I can just hand it over to you guys to do it for me. But I came to Australia about 12 years ago to do an MBA from the Melbourne Business School in marketing and strategy, a wonderful business school, highly recommend it. I worked after that at Sensis. I did a number of roles there, but I look after their segment strategy function, which basically said divvy up the market into various segments and how do we market to them. I'm just going to let a couple of people in here. And welcome Umesh, welcome Bobby. Nice to have you guys on. All right. Okay. So let's keep an eye on the participants as well. Subsequently, I worked at AGL, the energy company. And again, I looked after their segment strategy function, more to do with business to business, to small businesses. So small businesses have been pretty much, small to medium businesses have been the lifeblood of what I've been doing for the last 10 odd years. And in that same vein, I said, I've had enough of this whole corporate sort of circus at that time, because far too many restructures for my liking. And I didn't want to see another one for the next 20 years. So I decided that I would start my own business called Business Nirvana, which basically helps small to medium businesses on their marketing. I also had the privilege of sitting on the Multicultural Business Ministerial Council that saw me advise the Small Business Minister of Victoria on all small business matters. Last year, I was a judge on the Whitehorse Business Awards, which is a lot of fun. Highly recommended if you're in the Whitehorse area. And I also made the cut to speak at TEDx, a dream which I hopefully will come true. Of course, COVID-19 threw the spanner in the works, so hopefully come December, you will all get an invite from me. Okay, why bother with sending email newsletters at all, right? So let's look at some of the whys, the general whys that are out there. It's to connect with customers by informing, updating, and educating. To be seen as a business that likes to share content that is meaningful, relevant, and respectful. To motivate your customers to take action, right? Also, you could boost your social media following if you were to really nail the email newsletter side of stuff. To increase website traffic, okay? And to create more top of mind positioning. So these 6 factors are all very valid, absolutely. And email newsletters, if done well, can help you reach all these 6 objectives. Okay, but let's look at it in some other way, right? Now, I've talked about this stranger to customer journey in some of my other workshops. For those who are hearing this for the first time, I'll just take you through it. Anyone who's a customer today, right, at some point in the past, they would have been rank strangers. They probably didn't even know you existed. But they have made that journey from stranger through to customer. They've actually made that journey. How does that journey take place? In many different ways, but this is just one of the ways that will help us understand this whole framework. First, they will become aware that you exist. They will become aware that you provide or can provide a solution to their problem. Okay. Second step is when you can access them. Okay, you can access and capture their interest. That is the lead generation phase, which we covered last time. Okay. Then they become engaged with you, right? You engage them, you nurture them. Around this time, a lead becomes a prospect, somewhere in this stage. And you also get to demonstrate a lot of value in this whole process. And then you can ask for what is known as a sales conversation. It can be in the form of a booking, an appointment, a quote requested, but usually price comes up here. Price comes up ideally longer after you have demonstrated value. And then of course they become your customer. Okay, so basically they go from stranger through to being customer, right? That journey. What happens sometimes is that they come along to the access stage and then they exit the funnel or the process or the journey. Okay, they take a detour, never to return back. And that's something businesses, that is inevitable, but that's something businesses would look to avoid. So what we really want is to get them down here so that we can engage them. One of the most powerful ways to engage them is the newsletter. Okay. Now, this is not just for new customers. Even if you've got a customer and if you belong to an industry where repeat purchases are a norm, then it is a very powerful way to keep them in the funnel so that the next time they decide to buy, they don't go to the competition. So newsletters typically are sent to the entire database comprising of current, former, and future customers. Okay. All right, what are the components of email newsletters? Now this is one I did for one of my clients recently. The kind of the best practices in email newsletters will have more than one component. Typically they'll have 3 to 4. I like to use 3. So this, as you can see, is one component or one content piece. This client of mine is in the certification industry where business continuity is a big deal, especially during COVID-19. Right? So this was a very successful piece that a lot of people engaged with, and they're all clickable. So every time they click on this content, they go straight to another piece of the website or another digital property that is owned, importantly, owned by the business. Okay, you don't want to take them to Facebook or LinkedIn. The second component was asking them to watch a video, okay, which is an excellent call to action. Every newsletter must have at least one video component. The third component talked about economic benefits of standardization or accreditation. And these highlighted the 3 main factors why businesses take accreditation. So these are factors of why do people buy from us. This is basically conveying that. And again, call to action to contact us. Every time there was a click from here, it would go through to the website. So again, increasing website traffic. Put in some cool quote that you genuinely believe in, and you're also displaying your philosophy, why you do what you do. Okay. All right, this is another example. This is part of the newsletter that I send out. Again, it has 3 components, which is 1, I was advertising a webinar, which I did with the amazing Sue Glasser, who's also amongst us. Thank you, Sue. And then there was another component which talked about pandemics and innovation. And this is a value add. This had nothing to do with business nirvana, but it talked about how innovative the human spirit is. And this was something a lot of people really gravitated towards, right? This was a video as well. So there were a number of clicks on this. Now we can track all of that. If you use the right email platform, we can track who's clicked where and how many times. Now this was another article that I wanted people to read. So you would want to make people read, watch, and take some other form of action, okay? Now, those are the essential components of a newsletter. Now, they've got to look good for sure. And amongst us, we've got the very talented Bobby Bhaskaran, a dear friend of mine, who's a wonderful designer amongst the many things he does. So maybe at the end of it, if there's a bit of time, I'll get him to weigh in on the look of it as well. So yes, it's got to look good. It's got to have substance as well. So style and substance. It's not an or, okay? So you definitely need both. Now, what should happen after you send the newsletter? Now, this is really the big part of the puzzle, right? I mean, you can send beautiful looking newsletters that have a lot of substance. And then what? Right? It's gone into the stratosphere. Next month rolls along, you send another one. You don't know how your newsletters are doing. You actually don't know the role it is playing. So you cannot take a decision of, hey, should I can it? Should I pull the plug? Or should I continue on with it? Is this even working? Is this even making me any money? Right? Now, even if you are, most of your businesses would be for profit, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've all got bills to pay. Even if you are in the not-for-profit, you need financial stability. There's not a single organization that can do without financial stability. Right? So what should happen? Okay, so let's look at that journey again. Just the same way that your target market could exit the funnel at the access stage, they could exit from this stage as well. They might not make their way down, which is what we want to do. We want to bring them to the next stage, to convert. So in order to assist with that, in order to make sure they don't run away after reading the newsletter, we can do two things. One is manual and one is automated. So we're going to talk about the first one, which is segment-based campaigns. So let's look at this. Now, this is another funnel. If you may, it's like a funnel within a funnel. I don't want to sound like Inception, dream within a dream, but this is a mini funnel that operates within the whole email world, right? What happens is when you send an email, you will send it. Some of them will open it, some will click on it, and some will take the conversion action that you want. Okay, the dollars, the pot of gold is at the end of this rainbow. Okay, so ideally you want all of them to come through all the way down. Do they? Of course not, right? So these are just general numbers, but if you send it to 100 people, about 50 of them will open it, 50% open rate, which is great. 10 will click on it, 20% click rate, which is amazing. And one of them will take the action that you want them to take. Okay. So then three things happen, don't they? When you send an email newsletter in May, some might receive it, but not open it. Okay. Some might open it, but not click inside the email newsletter. They won't take the actions you want them to take. So they won't click on watch, for example. And some might actually click. Do you treat them the same? No, you don't. Okay. First thing you would do in your email database is to tag them on 3 different scales of engagement. The ones who clicked, you will tag them for that month if you're sending monthly newsletters, which is what I recommend. May newsletter, highly engaged. Open, did not click. May newsletter, moderate engagement. And then for tag as a May newsletter, not engaged, for the ones who did not open it. Okay. What you want to do is you want to repeat this for every month's newsletter. And you want to use them to create an overall newsletter engagement segment where you will have highly engaged, moderately engaged, and disengaged. You will then tailor email communication depending on how they are engaged. I've given an example, right? If they're highly engaged, then you want to send them content that can help them make decisions. You want to move them towards the sale. You want to ask for a booking or an appointment. Let them know that you can take on more work this month. You want to get into a sales conversation with these guys. With the moderately engagement, they need a bit more work, a bit more love. Use testimonials and encourage responses here. So if you send an FAQ email and you encourage them to reply to you back with a question, or you want them to take a quiz or a survey, then that is something that is a two-way communication street, which is what you want. Disengaged, well, you want to use videos, which are high engagement tools, and other high engagement content to try and engage them. All right, you definitely don't want to ask them for the sales conversation. And you can even send them the email newsletter again. Okay, I've got one more person joining in. I'm just going to admit them. Welcome, Ratanjeet. Okay, so these are the 3 ways that you treat the people who have received your email newsletter. Okay, so treat all 3 of them separately, differently. Okay, now we look at the automated method to nurture them. You all maybe heard of nurture campaigns. Nurture campaigns are used quite actively with what we discussed last time with lead magnets and lead generation, but they are also used with email newsletters, and they absolutely should be. Okay, nurture sequence for email newsletters. Let's use a 5-step nurture. 5 is a number that is not too much, not too little. And 5 has been, the statistics support the use of 5 nurture campaigns, and I'll explain why as well. So you want to set up a series of nurture emails that are automated, and they follow the newsletter in a particular sequence, in a particular time frame. So let's look at that. I'll just make sure that I've muted one. Thank you. All right, okay. And now the monthly newsletter. So the very first one, you would follow up to the newsletter. You would check in. You would provide supporting information, maybe even link to your blogs. Now, blogs is a wonderful piece of content because you can use them at multiple places. Okay. Second, nurture email. What's that going to be about? That's going to be about how things work in your industry, what the process is like, or why you do what you do. Again, you could use them in the form of blogs. So these first 2 emails, you cannot go for the jugular. You don't want to go for too much in those first few emails. You want them to open it. You want them to click on it. Third, content. All right, here you can sort of hint at a few things. You can talk about what clients or consumers or patients, depending on what industry you're in, what are they saying about you? Okay, written and video content. Video content is exceptional at this stage. So you really want to make sure that at this stage you've got your testimonials down pat. Okay, if you don't have it, it is a very powerful piece of marketing equipment that you can use. It needs to belong in your marketing arsenal. Okay, you really want video and written testimonials. Why? Because when we claim that, oh, we're the best at this, we're really good at maintaining relationships, the proof in the pudding comes when prospects read it from the customer's mouth, okay, from the horse's mouth. That's where you want it to come from. All right, okay. Nurture 4 talks about getting them to take some action. So similarly to a few slides ago, I talked about when you want them to respond back to you. Okay, you want them to ask a question back. You want them to send something back. Okay, so this is where you start now getting towards the pointy end of this. And then the 5th and final email in the nurture sequence will ask for the sales conversation. Ask them to make a booking or an appointment where you can have your sales conversation, which is where you get things over the line. Okay, but I can hear you say, but how do they get triggered? When do we send them? Okay, there's 2 ways that you can trigger this nurture sequence. One is called a source trigger, and the other is called a previous email trigger. And I'll explain both of them. First, let's look at source email trigger, right? So you sent the email newsletter off, and then you say, if they have opened the email newsletter, only if they have opened the email newsletter, send this email that says benefits of certification. This is an example, again, one I do for my clients, 2 days after they've opened the email newsletter. This can be 1 day, this can be 2 days. The way I've set it up for these guys is 2 days. It can be whatever you want, okay? You then say, after I've sent it off to XYZ, how am I going to know that XYZ actually got this? We call this stage Nurture 1A. And that's how they get tagged. The other 5 emails follow the same principle. So please note that the difference here is that if they've opened the email newsletter that you send, the monthly newsletter, all of them get triggered. The difference is that they get sent 2 days apart. So in 10 days, this whole series is done. Okay. The previous email trigger is something that is the same, but the trigger is different. This says, how have they interacted with the previous email that I have sent? Just because they've opened the first email newsletter doesn't mean it triggers all 5 of them, okay? They have to have opened Nurture 1. So for Nurture 2 to get sent, they have to have opened Nurture 1. Okay, so that's the series that's the sequence that it follows. What's the difference and what do I recommend? So the trade-off between source email and previous email trigger is quality versus quantity. You're going to, if they open up the first email newsletter that you send, they're going to receive all 5 of them. They don't have to do anything. Hey, you might even send all 5 of these nurtures and they might not open a single one, but you're going to end up sending up more. Okay, the quantity is going to be greater. In previous email trigger, you're not going to send nearly as many emails, but at every stage you are further qualifying them. So by the time someone gets the 5th nurture, you can be guaranteed they've been through the entire sequence. And that is a very high quality lead, which is also known as a high quality prospect by this stage. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna sort of bring it all together and give us a few minutes for Q&A. Please send email newsletters every month. I generally recommend once a month. You can decide upon a frequency, but when you do, you go back to what your customers want. And that goes back to how well you know your customers. Okay, and every time you want to make your contacts do something, every contact piece, make them do something. So people will either remember not open it, open but not click it, or click on your newsletter. And you need to treat all of these 3 sub-segments differently. You can plan your actions after the newsletter, in the afterlife of the newsletter, either manually or automatically. You can use source or previous email triggers for after you send the newsletter. Okay. Okay, how I can help? Look, I can design and conceive and send engagement newsletters for businesses. I do that. This is ideal if you've got a list and first names, but you're not really engaging the database. Again, I've met a lot of businesses who are at this stage. What happens if you don't engage? Well, as I've covered previously, they can exit the funnel. So this basically includes copywritten for 3 to 4 content blocks, complete design, reporting and campaign management, 2 follow-up campaigns on opened and didn't click, and a 5 email nurture sequence written and set up. So I can do all of the stuff that I've just showed you. Email me or give me a call later if this is of interest. Okay, what's happening next week? Next week will actually be a slightly different time, and I'm hoping most of you can make it. How to form strategic goals you will actually hit. Now, amongst us, as I've said, we've got Sue Glasser, who's an amazing person and a productivity specialist. And she talks about goal setting and goal getting. So maybe next week we'll get her to weigh in on a few things on this subject. She doesn't know that yet, but I just thought of that.